My name is Christopher Munoz-Colleen. I'm Assistant Director of Admission at Clark University. I will be hosting this Ask A Clarkie, which is actually our second Ask A Clarkie. We wanted to offer an additional chance to have a kind of more general way to interact with our students. So this is really just a way for you to ask any kind of questions that are on your mind. We actually have 3 students here, as you can see. But before I introduce them, I just want to offer some tips on the technology. So you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A feature and then the chat feature. And these have different functions. So the chat feature is for any kind of issue that you're having with technology. So if you suddenly cannot hear us, please write it in the chat. But everything else, so the Q&A, when you want to ask a question, that's where you're going to want to enter those. And you can begin submitting questions already. And after you submit a question, I just want to mention that you might not see it right away. This is to ensure that we get to as many questions as possible. So we actually have an admissions staff member behind the scenes who's helping us take care of those questions. So you might actually see a text answer to your question. And that's Nicole Zervos, one of our admissions counselors at Clark. So we will answer as many questions on air as we can. And some of those will be answered via text. And I just want to say that we appreciate your patience because we're doing our best to get your questions answered. And I'll say right now, if we don't get to your question, we will answer it by email personally in the future. So your question will get answered eventually. So we're actually going to get started with introducing our 3 panelists. So I'm going to just say the order that I see you on the screen. So Khadija, Anvi, and Jake, could you introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Khadija, but I also go by Dija. I'm currently a sophomore here at Clark, so I'll be junior soon, which is crazy. I'm currently majoring in political science with a concentration in international relations, and a philosophy concentration in ethics and public policy. Outside of working class, I am currently the administrative director of Counterpoints, which is the all-female identifying a cappella group on campus, and the co-publicity chair of BSU, which is the Black Student Union. I'm also an international student from Germany, so currently I'm also a teacher assistant for German 104. So yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Anvi and I'm a senior here at Clark studying biochemistry and molecular biology on the pre-med track. Outside of the classes that I take for my major, I'm also involved in a research group here on campus studying medicinal organic chemistry. And I'm also a medical scribe for our local hospital. So my primary role is to complete all the documentation for our physicians in the emergency department so that they have more one-on-one time with their patients. And I'm also the secretary for our Asian Culture Society as well.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Jake. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a senior as well, which is really crazy. I'm majoring in psychology, minoring in community youth education studies. That's actually our newest major / minor. It was entirely created by students, and it combines a lot of different kind of subject areas into the education minor that we already had. Outside of that, I've been the project manager for a nonprofit in the area called GSA Link, developing and then implementing an LGBTQ youth mentoring program. So it's sort of like a Big Brothers Big Sisters, but specifically for LGBTQ youth. Over the years, I've been really involved in our orientation process. So kind of just the transition between wherever you're coming from and before you start classes, and then now leading into the school year. So I've been involved in planning that. And then now currently, most of my time and energy is kind of spent on my honors thesis research that focuses on LGBTQ young adults and social media and the interaction between the two.
All right, thank you all for introducing yourselves. And I'm going to actually get us started with our first question, which is from Dylan, who asked, what interaction have you had with the other colleges in Worcester? And so I will open it up to all of you, whoever would like to answer this one.
I can start then. So I'm a part of ACS, which is our Asian Culture Society here on campus, and there's also Asian Culture Society over at Holy Cross at their college, and it was really cool that they got to invite and host these very large, this like, I guess you'd call them content creators on YouTube, and their name is their YouTube channel name is Wong Fu, and they're basically known for pioneering Asian American representation on YouTube. And I actually got to go over there, go to their meetup and like meet them in person. And like I've been watching them since I was in 6th grade, so it was super exciting to like meet these idols, actually get to talk to them, let them know how they've impacted my life, and kind of just watch the short film series that they created with them in person, and kind of have an open discussion about how Asian Americans are represented in the media. And so it was really nice to not be able to experience that for myself, but also with my Asian Culture Society here at Clark, but also with the one at Holy Cross as well.
Great, thank you. So I will ask another question similar about Worcester. This is from Zev. What is Worcester like? How much do Clark students interact with the city? Who would like to answer this? How about Jake?
Yeah, so I can start. I have gotten involved in Worcester in a lot of different ways in the 4 years, both through like employment and also just through just going out to different events. I would say just like getting an internship or a job in Worcester is a really great kind of access point to meet a lot of people. But to kind of summarize it, I guess Worcester is, I absolutely love Worcester. I think it's a really great town. There are a lot of really amazing organizations doing forward thinking and progressive work in the area to get involved with, whether that's working with youth, whether that's working in the medical field, whatever that is, and with refugee populations. And so in that way, Worcester's also a very diverse city, which is really cool, because then in that way you get to see all of these really amazing cultural festivals and cultural events just like in the immediate main South area that Clark is located in. There's a restaurant for probably just about any food you can imagine to kind of explore. So I think the people here are really dedicated to the work that they're doing. And your involvement, I think, is definitely kind of as much as you put into it, and doing it intentionally in the way that I think a lot of Clark students do, of finding ways to collaborate with the main South and Worcester communities rather than going out and doing isolated work. So in that way, I think both, again, like I said, informally, I worked with AIDS Project Worcester, or formally, I worked with AIDS Project Worcester for 1.5 to 2 years, running an LGBTQ youth group, and also just doing community relations work. So that was a really great kind of point for me to get more involved in the LGBTQ community in Worcester, and then going to like film festivals with friends that I've met that take place in Worcester at places like the Hanover Theater, Pride Festival. We have like it's like smaller, but it's nice. So I think there are a lot of opportunities to definitely get involved, especially if you go through like the community engagement office that we have and stuff like that. But all in all, I think Worcester's a great town. It's on the smaller side relatively to some other cities, so keep that in mind. But I think if you're looking for something, you'll probably find it in Worcester.
All right, thank you. So Sage had a question. How has Clark been dealing with moving classes online?
Yeah, so I can actually take this one. So as an international student, for me, I was very overwhelmed with like how everything is going to happen. Thankfully, Clark has been offering housing for students who have not been able to go home, or who don't feel safe at home, or for any other reason. So I'm currently living in Blackstone, which is one of the apartment style dorms that we have here on campus. The reason why I moved us to Blackstone is so we can actually like practice social distancing better. So usually only live with either 1 or 2 other people. And there's also a kitchen in here, which has been very useful. There's also been a food pantry, so I can get food from there. It's very easy for me to also just take the transportation that is offered also by Clark for free to any grocery store in the near area. And in terms of classes, it also, I would say, has been very smooth. So we actually cancel class for a week, so students can actually move home or move into Blackstone and kind of like take the time to really like figure everything out for themselves, which was just like very helpful. And now we're just on Zoom having regular classes. I know like a lot of people who would have to deal with time difference can just like view these lectures online. So all these lectures are usually recorded, so you can just watch them in your own time, or just like go back in case you need any notes. All the professors have been also very accessible in terms of like any questions. We're all trying to like deal with this the best we can. And I can like definitely say that professors as well as students have done a great job. Yeah.
Thank you. So Anvi, I have a great question for you. This is from Jim. What experience do you have with undergraduate research at Clark, and what's it like?
Yay, this is so exciting. Clark has a very robust research program. All of our full-time faculty are required to be doing some form of research here on campus. So basically, most of your professors are doing something, so you can always get involved with them. The way that I kind of got involved was during my first year. I was taking Chemistry 101, and during our lab section, our professor was like, hey, let's talk about research that's going on in the department. And so basically brought in all of the professors within the chemistry department and kind of just had them give us a brief summary about what they were studying. And I got super interested in Dr. Jacobs's research. And I emailed him that day right away and was like, hi, I'm super interested. Please let me into your lab. And he was like, hold on. You have not even finished Chemistry 101, and you still need to take organic chemistry in order for you to have a full understanding of what I'm doing in my lab. So take organic chemistry and then get back to me. And so the minute I finished organic chemistry, I emailed him back again and was like, hi, I'm still really interested. Can I please join your lab? And ever since that day, I've been in the lab. And it's super cool because my transition into the lab was very gradual. Whereas when I first started, he was basically by my side 24/7 to make sure that I was practicing and building safe habits while in the lab. As well as asking me critical questions to really think about how I'm setting up my experiments and things like that. But now that I'm a senior, I kind of just have my own reign, and he just says, I'm probably gonna stay home today. If you need me, call me and I'll come in. But do what you gotta do. And I know you can like kind of hold your own, so you're on your own. So it's nice to kind of have that progression and not have, and kind of have that hand holding at the beginning, but then kind of given that independence at the end.
Yeah, thank you. So so I think Anvi and Jake, you're both from the area, right? You're both from Massachusetts. Okay, so this is more of a question for Khadija, because someone was asking, do students from the West Coast normally fly directly into Worcester or Boston? So I know you're not from the West Coast, but you do fly in, I'm assuming. So where do you normally fly in?
So for international flights, it just makes most sense to fly into Boston directly. However, I know that a lot of students actually have been flying out of Worcester and into Worcester just because it's like such a cute and small airport, but still it's like has very affordable flights, and it's just like I think 15-minute drive away. So most students, I think, from my perspective, fly into Worcester if it's not like very far.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I was thinking probably Anvi and Jake do not fly into. So Sam had a question. This is back to Worcester. Is the city of Worcester safe? So who would like to answer that question?
I can take that. So I personally think that Worcester is very safe in terms of, I feel very comfortable living in this community. I will say, a tiny bit biased because I did grow up in the area, so I know it very well. But even outside of that, I've been able to explore better, like I would say, more parts of Worcester now that I go to Clark. And I think one of the really cool things is that we live in a residential neighborhood. And so like every day when I kind of come to school, I see little kids getting on the bus in the morning to go to school. I see them playing on the playground after school. And so it makes it feel very homey. And so I think that kind of builds that community, as well as all of the restaurants within the area are kind of mom and pop shops. And so it's super nice where I kind of frequent very specific restaurants all the time. And they're like, oh, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Like, are you doing okay? Like they check in on you kind of thing. And so it makes it feel like Worcester is really home. I will preface with Worcester is still a city, and just like any other city, any place, you should never walk alone, especially late at night. So always use the buddy system. But we also have university police on campus 24/7, and they're always available to you. I commute to school, and so it's really nice to see that pretty much every day, every night, there is a police car somewhere in the garage to kind of patrol around and make sure that students are getting to their cars safely. And we also have Clark Safety Escort that will basically take students anywhere within a quarter-mile radius of Clark from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. every day. So if you don't feel safe walking, or if you're just too lazy to walk, that's definitely a method of transportation around the city as well.
Okay, thank you. So I have two questions related to housing, so I'll put them together. One question is, do most students live on campus for 4 years? And the second question is, are there private bathrooms for first-year residence halls?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about off-campus versus like on-campus housing. So personally right now, seeing as like how I'm about to be a junior, I decided to move off-campus after my sophomore year. I've seen that a lot of people out of my grade are actually trying to do the same thing just because it's like I've grown so much. I feel like an adult now. I can have my own apartment kind of vibe. So I would say like there are a lot of people who decide to move off campus after their sophomore or even their junior year. However, there's still like a few students who decide to continue living on campus. This could have like a number of different reasons. For instance, if you have like a scholarship that just automatically pays for housing, just for instance, makes more sense for you to live on campus. And there's still a good amount of students who still decide to do that. And there's just like a lot of like advantages and disadvantages for both, I would say. But as a junior and senior, you definitely like are very eligible to continue living on campus. Like they're not gonna like kick you off or anything like that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I like just for numbers wise, about a third of juniors move off campus and half of seniors move off campus. So like Khadija said, like there's still plenty of people on campus. I'm currently in my off-campus apartment, and it's literally like 30 seconds further off of Clark's campus. So when we say off campus, it's still like immediately very close by. It's just, and for me, it was actually a lot cheaper to move off campus the way it worked out. So.
And Jake, would you say that a lot of the people who move off campus live relatively close to campus?
Yeah, it's about 2 or 3 blocks around campus. I think someone mentioned it, but the area is mostly residential. So you're mixed in with families and other college students for the most part. I would say it's probably not more than a like 5 to 7 minute walk for most people who live off campus. So yeah.
Great. So,
yeah, and sorry, just to answer the private bathrooms question. So the way it works in 2 of our first year residence halls, which are Wright and Bullock, there is a communal bathroom on each floor that kind of has a bunch of toilet stalls as well as shower stalls within one area. And during your first week, you kind of designate whether you want that to be an all gender identifying bathroom, or if you're more comfortable with that being a specific gender identifying bathroom. For Hughes and Dana, they have these multiple single stall lock bathrooms spread out throughout each floor. So if that's what you mean by private bathroom, that's what they have, but no individual room will have its own bathroom.
Great, and thank you for catching that, Anvi. So we have a question from Sam, who asks, what kind of activities can you get involved in on campus? So I think all of you could potentially answer this question, but whoever feels drawn to it, please feel free.
Yeah, I could take that one. So we do have over 130 clubs on campus. So we do have a lot of different opportunities to get involved. Luckily, we do have a kind of club fair every semester, so they give students the chance to get to know new clubs or to join new clubs, or just like to kind of like get a feel of what else there's to do. However, you definitely do not have to be a part of all these different clubs to be able to go to their events. So something that I had to learn after signing up for at least 10 clubs is I definitely don't have time to go to all of them, which is totally fine, because like all of the clubs have a lot of events throughout the semester you can go to. So there are also, like some of them are also very interactive. So for instance, BSU for Black History Month had a lot of like conversation-based events. So for instance, like if you like more want to be like active in that kind of way, there are a lot of like events that have discussions and you get to like know new people, new perspectives. They're always really fun. But there are also like other events like a performance of an a cappella group or a poetry slam that everyone can also join or sign up for. So there's so many different things to do. There's usually something for everyone. And if you think, okay, there's one club that Clark does not have, you can actually start your own club. You just like need to have signed a petition, and then you can kind of like create that as well. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. So someone asked a question, how strong is the LGBTQ plus community at Clark and in Worcester? So Jake, I will pass that question to you.
I love this question. I would say it's very strong, as a short answer. First at Clark, just in like complete transparency, I don't know if I would have come out if it wasn't for the people that I met at Clark. I came out my second semester of my first year, and that was because of how, even if it's someone who's not in the LGBTQ community, I found that in general, just the student body as a whole is very accepting and embracing, and in a lot of ways wants to see you be your authentic self. So with that, I think if you are part of the LGBTQ community, you'll find your group, you'll find your space, and your friends. Structurally, there's a couple things, like we have PRISM, which is a club ran by students who offer resources. They put on a couple different events, like the drag ball they do twice a year. They also do a couple kind of similar to what Khadijah was just talking about, of like conversation cafe-esque sort of events. And then they also have like an office where you can go and just have conversations with the people on the e-board there. Clark, like as an institution, has some things to work on in terms of bettering the lives of LGBTQ students, but I think overall it's a very accepting school. And then as well in Worcester, similarly, I think there's a decent sized scene for it. Again, like I mentioned, there's the Pride Festival, which is in Worcester, central downtown. It's smaller in terms of relative prides, but other than that, there's a variety of different organizations. So there's Shades, which is for queer people of color. There's Worcester Youth Pride that does like a Youth Pride prom dance for young people in the area. There's also just the general Worcester Pride. So there's a bunch of organizations that are celebrating that culture and celebrating that life here in Worcester. And then also something I want to note, at Clark, we also have a queer people of color space on campus, affinity space. So that's in addition to PRISM as well. So in all, I think it's a great place to be a part of the community, and that you'll find a lot of really amazing people. And some of my close friends are just people in Worcester that are also part of the LGBTQ community that I've met through doing this work. All of my roommates are like, you'll definitely find that here.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Zev, who asks, does Clark have many outdoor adventuring opportunities? Do students ever go camping or on hikes?
I can take that. I don't know too much about camping, but I do know a little bit about hiking. We do have Wachusett Mountain, which is, I don't know the exact distance, but it's relatively close, under 30 minutes from Clark. And it's like a short 1 to 2 mile hike, depending on the route you take. And that's nice in like the spring and fall if you want to go hiking, and you can also go there for skiing in the winter. We also have Purgatory Chasm, which I think is also about 20 minutes from Clark, and that's more of like a nature walk with some cool rocks that you can look at and squeeze between, if that's your thing. And we also have a rock climbing gym as well that a lot of students will frequent. And there are a couple like pumpkin patches and apple orchards within the area that students will go to in the fall to do festive activities.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one more question from Riley, who asks, what are some things you would like to see improved at Clark?
I can start.
Yeah, sure.
So I am a commuter student, and so I feel like Clark could work on being more welcoming to us in terms of giving us access to things. Like I think they assume that we don't use things like printing money, or we don't want access to the library. And it's not just like students who live specifically like me at home, but also students who decide to move off campus. Once you move off campus, you no longer have like access to the library late at night. But it's like we still kind of come to campus to use these facilities and things like that. I remember my first year, I didn't have access to printing money, and I eventually talked to people to get it, but it was kind of jarring for me to be like, oh, now instead of like being able to do my homework at school and then like print out my lab reports and hand it in, I need to get everything done the day before in advance, and just have to like do different planning in order to accommodate for this. And so I have like been able to talk with people who are listening to me and being advocates for me in that sense. But I think there is some space for improvement in that sense.
And I appreciate that also, just the authenticity. And I'm just looking at the time because we have about 3 minutes left. So and this is actually, you know, I think when we talk about things that could be improved at Clark, there's always the underlying message of we're critiquing it because we love it. And so that's a great bridge to this last question, which is, what do you love most about Clark? And I mean, as I said, you could, you know, answer any aspect of the place that stands out to you. So Khadija, what do you love most about Clark?
Yeah, so personally, what I really enjoy is how passionate everyone is about what they're doing. It was actually also something that like really stood out to me when I first visited Clark as well. Because like everyone was doing their introductions, everyone was so involved and also like so ready to get to know what you're interested in. So it's not just one-sided, it's like very interactive. There's always like a lot of like opportunities on which you can kind of also exchange what you're passionate about. And there's always kind of like an intention of working together and kind of like make a newer project even better or go even beyond what you already have. And it's just like great to see if you say like, hey, it's like there's like a kind of like problem, do you want to help with that? And everyone's like, yes, what can we do? And it's just like something that I personally really appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, going off of that, I think I really appreciate the collaborative nature of academics at Clark. As a pre-med student, I was really concerned with coming to a school where I was going to have to like hide myself away in a corner and study by myself and make sure that I did the best on a test, just so that everybody else would do the same and that I'd be the one to get into medical school. And then I quickly came to realize that that's just not the mentality to have. And I've learned a lot from my peers. And I think it's very nice to be able to go and ask anybody I want for help, and they always say yes, and they know that that's always going to be reciprocated if they come to me and ask for help. And I think that way of building community makes learning a lot more fun, and it's kind of just a nice way to release, I guess, reduce all of the stress that comes with academics as well.
Yeah, I would say just to echo both of those things, but also I didn't expect to find such amazing mentors at Clark. I have a really amazing mentor as my my academic advisor, and then also a graduate student that I work with on my research. And I wasn't expecting to find such close relationships with people that I admire so much. And I think part of that is because it is a pretty small school, but also it's just that people here really care, and they both mentors that I'm talking about check in with me on like academic stuff, but also always are checking in with me on my personal life, how I'm doing, how everything else in my life is going other than like research, which just feels really amazing to have that connection. So that's what I would add.
And I can echo that as well. I mean, all of the points that you raised, Khadija, about the passionate community, and also, you know, Jake and Anvi, the kind of mentorship and the way that people are there for you, that really does hit home for me about Clark. There's definitely that feeling of, like you were saying, Anvi, of being in a community. Mm-hmm. So I actually want to thank everyone for tuning in. And I mean, I also want to mention that if you wanted to ask more, or a question occurs to you in an hour or in a week, you're always welcome to email us at admissions@clarku.edu. And if your question did not get answered in this webinar, please know that we will be reaching out personally to answer that question. One thing I did want to mention is that we'll be hosting our next webinar tomorrow at 6 p.m. and the topic is financial aid at Clark. So this was a lot of fun, and I want to thank everyone for being here. It's wonderful to see Khadija, Anvi, and Jake, all of you again. And as we go forward, that's my biggest encouragement for everyone listening. We are happy to be in touch, and I know some of you in the audience, we've spoken, and it's been wonderful to get to know all of you as well. So stay in touch, stay healthy, and remember that we got this. All right, thank you, everybody.